I'm Lance with the retail team at ABU Games, and today we're taking a look at Founders of Gloomhaven by Isaac Childres. This is a city building, engine building game for solo 2-5 players. It takes place in the same universe that the award-winning Gloomhaven games took place in earlier this year, and it's been pretty hyped recently. So it's a mid-weight Euro engine builder for 1 to 4 players, in which you're going to be building out the city of Gloomhaven that you actually play the RPG in the earlier title in the year. So you're going to be taking actions to build out your trade network and develop your resource engines in order to make sure that you have the most victory points at the end of the game as you work together to make the city spring up from the riverbed that it was built around. All right, guys, we're back, and let's take a look at what's in the box. So, right off the bat, got the classic rulebook here, and as always with these Cellophane games, they do have a watch a video to learn. So if you don't want to get through the rulebook, you can jump to that. Or these rulebooks are always really well laid out. They always have this nice iconography and really clean explanations of each of the different factions and their player boards and the different things you're going to be doing in the game. So either way is going to be a great way to jump into the game. And then diving a little deeper, we've got our nice big map. This board is where most of the action is going to be taking place. So players will be taking on different factions in Founders of Gloomhaven, each which has their own basic resource that's then refined into secondary resources, and that's used to score victory points at different buildings that are going to be built throughout the game. The river and the wall leading here create obstacles that players are going to have to overcome by building both tunnels and bridges in order to connect their supply networks from the entry area of Gloomhaven down to the port in order to make supply chains with some of the resources that are on the map. And on the other side, we have a nice 2-sided player board. So there's a different challenge if you want to play it with the other side, which is more geared towards a 3-player game, and the main side is for that 4-player or 2-player experience. Delving in a bit further, we've got these nice punch boards with the different tiles that you'll be using to play the game. Each tile here represents different buildings that different factions can build out, and they require resources that are going to be gathered by both you and your opponents in order to gain you victory points. But if you supply all the resources, you get all the points yourself. If your opponents help out, then they get a portion of the victory points equal to what they've supplied. That's all shown on the card here. Most of the game is going to be about laying down these nicely shaped puzzle pieces as you're trying to efficiently place as many buildings as possible and connect them to your trade network. And then you have the different resource tracks here that you can use to get more and more bonuses. And you got the roads that are built in, and they have the nice little art here. They're all just cosmetic, which is great. And then you've got your set of bridges and trading huts that you'll be using during the course of the game. Under our punch outs, we've got our player boards that are used to keep track of your different factions, and they have this nice bit of lore, just like the Gloomhaven player boards had on them as well. So if you're curious about what's going on in the world, you can get into those. And let's go ahead and open up these guys so you can see more of them. So lots of different factions that you can play. Each of them is going to have a different set of resources that they create, and these are the player factions for the 2-player game. And you can see that marked real small down there in the bottom corner. There'll be different faction boards for the 3- and 4-player game, just to balance it out so that all of the resources are being produced by the different factions. There's our even more player boards there for you. And then in the back here, you have your research market area that is used during the course of the game. So different advisors are going to come up during the course of the game that you're going to be able to bid for and purchase with one of your actions. And then there'll be a bidding contest every so many turns when players want to vote in order to pick up their cards. And during that process, you'll be bidding for various government buildings. Inside the card deck, we actually get a bonus card here for Gloomhaven. So if you own Gloomhaven and you get Founders of Gloomhaven, you're going to get this to put into your city deck so that you can take that home and expand that out. Just a little bit of a bonus there. Card backs are always just a little tight. Cool. And then inside here we've got those city events. and then you get into the actual meat of the game. So you've got the different cards that you can recruit. These upgrade your basic actions or give you influence or victory points at the end of the game. So they're a big part of the flavor of it as you're reaching out and trying to get different guilds to work with you or different individuals in the town. And then you have these buildings, which represent your big historic projects in Gloomhaven, and they actually make up the way that you're going to score your end-game victory points by delivering specific types of advanced resources to these different buildings. And once a certain number of those have been built, then the game will end depending on your player count. So you'll want to be making sure that you are building resources and voting for these buildings during the voting phase to make sure the ones that you can get the most of are being built. Then we come into the player cards here. So each player will receive a hand of cards when they're playing, and those hands represent the actions that you can take on your turn. When you take the main action, every other person at the table after you can vote into taking a follow action or a minor action after you take a main action. So there's not a lot of downtime in Founders of Gloomhaven, because even when it's not your turn, other players are going to be taking actions that allow you then to get bonuses as well. So you kind of want to watch for what your opponents are doing and try and plan around that so that you can get benefits off of their follow actions instead of having to take your own action economy in order to do the actions that you want done. So that's the cards there. Got these nice big bags of wooden chips. So you've got your resource cubes for the different factions that are going to be used to represent your progress towards different achievements and keep track of score. Nice big bag of those guys. You've got your circular tokens that are used for marking the different faction areas that you own and the resources that you have gathered. And then you have these fantastic detailed meeple that each player gets for their different factions. They have nice screen printing on them there, so they really went above and beyond. You've also got some for the different trade houses and different buildings that you can build in Founders of Gloomhaven. And then lastly, down here in the bottom of the bags, we've got this nice bit of influence. So you spend this during the voting phase to try and get the different buildings that you want built, voted, and built into town. And other than the solo cards, that is the entirety of the box. So I recommend Founders of Gloomhaven for anybody who wants a mid to heavyweight Euro game that has a resource development sub-theme. So if you like city builders, or if you like the idea of building up a chain of resources that gets progressively more complex, and then using those resources in order to score victory points. And you also like the feel of a game that is both competitive, but has almost like an air of cooperation to it as the city is growing and merchants are working together for their own personal means, but still for the good of themselves and the city. If that sounds fun to you, this is gonna be a great pickup. Fantastic art, really high quality rule book, and a great rule set. So if you're interested in Founders of Gloomhaven, you can pick it up at abugames.com. Once again, guys, I'm Lance with ABU Games, and this has been Founders of Gloomhaven.